Hi, I'm Carolyn Kiefer, and I have been a part of Fat Goose Camp since 1974, I think is what it comes down to. And so I thought I'd give a brief history of why we call this Fat Goose Camp, and then, as I usually do, and then tell you more about it. So in 1972 or so, Willa Barsness, who was a beloved member of the St. Michael's Cathedral and a professor, had an adult Sunday school class. And the class always ran long because there was so much to talk about. And everyone was getting frustrated with not finishing the conversation. So it wasn't really a class, it was more of a salon in the old traditional way. So they decided they'd go up to camp for a weekend so they could finish the conversation. So some of this conversation started in 1972 with a small gathering, and then it has grown on and on since then. And the conversation still continues and is still rich. So this has become St. Michael's Family Camp, and also a camp that's open to the rest of the diocese. But I think it's helpful to know how long it's been going on and how it got started. So the funny name, why it's called Fat Goose Camp. In the early years, there was always a theme, and it was usually a movie or a reading or something, and then there would be long, good, rich conversation that would continue over a social hour and along the beach and on and on. So there were these themes. Well, in 1973, it became the Fat Goose story, and it's sort of the beginning of the camp. This story is one that Willa found, and it's a parable by Soren Kierkegaard, the philosopher. So it's sort of a tongue-in-cheek one in a way, as so much of his stuff was. So here's the story. Try to imagine for a moment that geese could talk, that they had so arranged things that they too had their divine worship and their church going. Every Sunday, they would meet together and a gander would preach. The sermon was essentially the same each time. It told of the glorious destiny of geese, of the noble end for which their Maker had created them. And every time his name was mentioned, all the geese curtsied, and all the ganders bowed their heads. They were to use their wings to fly away to distant pastures to which they really belonged, for they were only pilgrims on this earth. Well, the same thing happened each Sunday. Thereupon the meeting broke up and they all waddled home, only to meet again next Sunday for divine worship and to waddle off home again. But that was as far as they ever got. They throve and grew fat, plump, and delicious. And at Michaelmas, they were eaten. And that's as far as they ever got. It never came to anything. For while their conversation on Sunday was all high sounding, on Monday they would tell each other what had happened to the goose, who had taken the end set before them quite seriously, and in spite of many tribulations, had tried to use the wings its creator had bestowed upon it. All that was indeed common knowledge among the geese, but of course no one mentioned the subject on Sundays, for as they observed, it would then have been obvious that to attend divine service would have been foolish, to be fools, that to attend divine service would have been to fool both God and themselves. Well, among the geese were several who looked ill and wan, and the other goose said, there, you see what comes from taking flying seriously? It's all because they go about meditating on flying that they get thin and wan and are not blessed by the grace of God as we are. For that is why we grow fat, plump, and delicious. And so the next Sunday, they went off to divine service, and the old gander preached of the glorious end to which their Maker, and at that point, all the geese curtsied and all the ganders bowed their heads, had created them, and why they were given wings. So that was the starting of the conversation. Are we just fat, plump, and delicious? Or are we going to learn to fly? Since that time, there have come out some other kind of goosiness lessons. And one of them came out of the work of a Milton Olson, St. James Episcopal Church in Austin, Texas. And I'm not sure when this was written, but this has also become part of the Fat Goose lore. And that is lessons from geese. Fact 1. As each goose flaps its wings, it creates an uplift for the birds that follow. By flying in a V formation, the whole flock adds 71% greater flying range than if each bird flew alone. And the lesson? People who share a common direction and sense of community can get where they are going quicker and easier because they are traveling on the thrust of one another. Fact 2. When a goose falls out of formation, it suddenly feels the drag and resistance of flying alone. It quickly moves back into formation to take advantage of the lifting power of the bird immediately in front of it. The lesson? If we have as much sense as a goose, we stay in formation with those headed where we want to go. We are willing to accept their help and to give our help to others. Fact 3. When the lead goose tires, it rotates back into the formation, and another goose flies to the point position. It pays to take turns, is the lesson, doing the hard tasks and sharing leadership. As with geese, people are interdependent on each other's skills, capabilities, and unique arrangement of gifts, talents, or resources. Fact 4. The geese flying in formation honk to encourage those up front to keep up their speed. Lesson: we need to make sure our honking is encouraging. In groups where there is encouragement, the production is much greater. The power of encouragement, to stand by one's heart or core values and encourage the heart and core of others, is the quality of honking that we seek. Fact 5. When a goose gets sick, wounded, or shot down, 2 geese drop out of formation and follow it down to help and protect it. They stay with it until it dies or is able to fly again. Then they launch out with another formation or catch up with the flock. The lesson: if we have as much sense as geese, we will stand by each other in difficult times as well as when we are strong. Somehow this year, that seems like very important information for all of us as we feel like we're falling out of formation, as we lose our sense of community and connectedness within the church. So a third piece is from the Celtic tradition, and it is used often around Pentecost. So many Christian traditions employ the dove as the primary symbol of the Holy Spirit, and for good reason. It is a dove, after all, that descended upon Jesus during his baptism. The dove also represents peace and shalom, which are essential tenets of Christian identity. The Celtic Christians, on the other hand, chose the wild goose as a way to talk about the Spirit. Celtic Christians often forged their symbols out of the ordinary daily things of the earth that they saw in front of them. For them, the untamed, uncontrollable, erratic nature of the wild goose more closely characterized the movement of the Spirit than did a peaceful, tranquil dove. A wild goose is always on the move, always doing unexpected things. It is loud, passionate, sometimes frightening, and certainly unsettling. Pentecost is a feast of geese, wild, dirty, loud geese, honking the gospel, biting those who would oppress the weak, insisting that we travel together in worship and in service, geese that challenge our comfortable Christian coziness and remind us that we have dignity and that we must fight for the widow and orphan. Geese whose song expresses the truth so well voiced in the letter of James that said, faith without works is dead. So as we go to virtual Fat Goose, let us keep in mind the values, the traditions, the warmth, the support, and all the goosiness that we have shared for these very many years, and look forward to sharing again together in reality, hopefully next year. I also wish to note that there was one other year when there was no Fat Goose Camp, and that was 1994. And the reason then was that there were forest fires, and they were burning so close around the camp that for a while they had firefighters staying at the camp as a base camp. And as the fire came closer, then it wasn't even safe for them to be able to retreat out of the one road. So camp was closed. So there's a precedence, and we came back, and we will come back again, just like migrating, honking wild geese. Thank you. Glad we can all meet this way too. Goodbye.